Do you ever feel stuck? Once upon a time, there was a girl. Let's call her Isabel, because that was her name. And she was lost. Like really, really lost. Adrift in her own life story, without a clue where she was going or where she was headed. She once had a ship, of that she was sure, but it's gone. And now she's on a little raft, not knowing where she's headed or what comes next. You know the type, constantly wondering, who am I? What's my purpose? What's the meaning of all of this? Why is there a Russian nesting doll in my pocket? Like I said, all that remained of her ship was a little raft. And now that the ship was gone, she had no idea where to go. How many of you have been here before? Adrift in your own life story, not sure where you're headed, as if you are in the middle of the sea, like Isabel. Well, one day, she saw a shadow, a beacon of hope, or a signal for the end. She was not sure. She had never seen anything like it. It seemed to come out of nowhere, existing not only outside of the past, but as if it had no past at all. Was it her past, creeping back in? It was too far to be anything substantial. And as she wondered about the shadow, again, she reached for the doll in her pocket, and she wondered, why couldn't she grab a flare gun? But maybe it had a secret. Maybe there was something within the layers of the doll that could lead to her finding something new. So, let's pick up the doll together and investigate where this story takes us. Chapter 1, The Power of Stories. We humans are funny creatures. We're natural storytellers. Everything we do is wrapped up in a story. How many of you have told a story before? All of your hands should be up because you are living stories. Now keep that hand up if your story remained the same since you were created. Exactly. I don't know why your hand is up. Did you know, each time we recall a memory, we are actively reshaping it. 60 to 70% of our memories, the core of who we think we are, is made up. It is constantly shifting like the tides. And what started as 100% certainty changes with each perspective we take on. We add layers of emotion, thought, feeling, all of those tricky things that cause a lot of arguments when we think we see the same thing and we're talking about completely different topics. And here's the kicker. Those evolving stories shape us more often than we realize, because we're sitting here today, a complete puzzle to ourselves, and we don't even know it. She wondered, as she sat on that raft, who was she before the shipwreck? Was she captain of her own ship? The stories we tell ourselves create ourselves, whether we realize it or not. Dan McAdams, this really cool guy from Northwestern University, was the first to formally use the term narrative identity. And this basically suggests that all the stories we tell create who we are and shape our lives. So isn't it a little important to know what story we're telling? Don't you want to be the author of your story instead of a character stuck? Why was she lost at sea? That no longer seemed to be her biggest question. Now she was wondering who she was. And as she stared at the doll, she had a new question in her mind as she peeled back the next layer. Chapter 2. What if self is just another story? Who here has heard of the ship of Theseus? Good, because I'm about to tell you, put your hands down. It's an ancient thought experiment that goes something like this. Once, there was a great ship called Theseus. And over time, the sails were worn down, the planks were rotting, so they had to replace piece by piece. And by the end, if every piece was replaced, was it the same ship? Now imagine that we are like a ship. Our beliefs, our emotions are constantly in flux. Part of life is learning and growing, so naturally, our planks are also going to be replaced over time. What if we saw ourselves as the ship of Theseus, something that is constantly changing, constantly evolving, and yet there is still something that makes me, me, and you, you. History, societies, families, we all have collective stories. We share them at the dinner table. Dad talks about what he was like in college. Mom pretends not to hear. And then brothers take notes for when they're in college. But the fact of the matter is, you are an ever-evolving story. And the issue comes when we start to take other people's stories as priority over our own, because they are giving us the map to our own doom if we follow it. I followed it. That's probably how I ended up here on this raft. Now that I'm sitting on this raft, wondering how I got here, I think back to the ship I had before as I peel back the next layer of the doll and see what lies beneath. Now, this is my favorite chapter because it is the universal thing that we all should think about. Why do we cling to stories? Why is it so hard for us to let go? At this layer, we're going to find the chapters we don't read out loud. They're the significant events that shaped us. They're our childhood, our traumas, our fears, our deepest insecurities. This layer is heavy, and people often don't read it out loud. But I will today. Raise your hand if you've ever felt anxious about the future. Well, the future is uncertain, and we're naturally going to fear what is uncertain. That is in our nature. There's this term coined by one of my favorite people in the world, Ernest Becker. He says that terror management is a theory created solely to explain that culture, religion, everything that we believe as the absolute truth was created to escape our fear of death. For those of you who know me, you should be very proud I made it a whole 7 minutes without mentioning death. Thank you. Death is our eternal reminder that nothing lasts forever. Every story has to come to an end. Now, I want to invite you to consider a new way of looking at life. If everyone could close their eyes and try to imagine that life is like a hot summer's day, and in your hand is your favorite ice cream cone. Are you going to watch it melt and cry over the fact that it is dripping and it is soon going to be a puddle at your feet? Of course not. You're going to take a bite, and then another bite, and once it's gone, you're going to be full, I hope. Well, life is like an ice cream cone that has been handed to us. And melting is a call to enjoy, not to despair. So I invite you, next time you think about endings of any kind, remember that once something ends, it gives space for something new to begin. And fear is a very big motivator. Trust me, I know, I'm up here right now talking to you. But there is something, I promise you, stronger than fear. Let's go back to the girl. As she looked at the doll, She remembered that devastating night flashed before her eyes, when she came face to face with the storm, knowing that there was no way for her to turn back. It was over, and she was going to have to lose her ship, and possibly herself along with it. There's nothing more powerful than the pull of the storm, she thought. The captain always goes down with the ship, right? Chapter 4, nothing to lose, everything to gain. Have you ever loved something so deeply that even the thought of losing it would absolutely devastate you? We fear endings because there's a story attached to absolutely everything, and we're afraid that once it ends, we're going to lose that story as well. And how are we going to begin again when everything that we knew was in the past? We cling to people, we cling to moments and experiences, not out of fear, but out of grief for something that we haven't even lost yet, but we know it's coming. We can feel it, because nothing lasts forever. Paradoxically, all of the wise men say, if you love something, set it free. Well, that's much easier said than done. Here's the truth, though. You really have nothing to lose, because that person, that thing, that ship, that ice cream, it was never yours. You didn't come into the world with it. Of course, you're not going to leave the world with it. But while you're here, you get to enjoy it. Now, I like to think of love a little bit differently than the average person. I think it's about starting a new chapter. I think it's about rebuilding your ship and sailing on. I think it's about enjoying the ice cream before it melts away. And yes, as sad as it sounds, I do think it is about loving with your whole heart, knowing that there is a very good chance that that person is going to leave and going to have a new story, and you will probably not be in it. But that's okay, because you'll have a new story to tell by the end of this. One day we're all going to die, but while we're here, we have the chance to tell an amazing story. And once that story ends, we can tell another one. Carl Jung, my second favorite person after Ernest Becker, said that life is like a cyclical staircase, because we're constantly looping back around to the same things, learning new lessons from different angles, gaining new perspectives. And he realized that life wasn't just a sick joke in this sense. What it was really teaching us is that there is a core at the heart of every lesson, and that core lies in the final doll. Chapter 5, full circle. Here we reach the core, the itty-bitty smallest doll underneath all of this. Now, I like to call this doll the void. It's a scary word, and it is often misunderstood, because I see the void as limitless potential. I see it as an expansive sea, and who knows what you're going to find in it. But you have to be brave enough to take the first step. Once you lose everything, once you shed all these layers, there's nothing really holding you back. But you can rebuild yourself piece by piece and layer by layer, and once it's all over, you can start again, because that is life. And you are like a Russian nesting doll. You're layered, you're complex, and you're very simple, because at the heart of everything, you're just someone who wants to experience the pain, the joy, and everything in between. Oftentimes, we can feel trapped by the past. We can feel like there's no moving forward because we are who we are and that's it. But that's not true. We can be anything we want to be, not in a cliche sense, but in actual layered sense, because there is nothing that makes me if I get rid of one layer. I can't get rid of my core, it's impossible. But I would like to go back to the story I started with, because the girl sat there on the raft, and she saw the doll before her, before a mystery, but now she realized it was very obvious what had happened. The storm had come that night, and she knew the ship would not survive. She could turn back, of course, and go in a different direction, try something new. But sometimes the storm is inevitable. Sometimes you have to go into the eye of it, and you might not come out the other side, but you can't keep running away from the things you fear. So our captain went into the storm, knowing she probably wouldn't make it out alive, but then she did. And now she's on this raft with this doll, and she realizes she can start over. She can be whoever she wants to be. The last remnant of the past was the raft. It was the last indicator of her life before. And the second she jumped off, she realized she could swim. I have a message in the bottle from our captain, just seeing where her story took her and what she's decided to do now, so I will read it. I once had a great ship called Theseus, but that ship is long gone, and so is its captain. The last remnant of my past was the raft. I had been clinging to it, even though it felt like my last chance at survival. Really, it was holding me back from fully stepping into my future beyond the shipwreck, making space for a new me. But now I'm ready to finally let go and embrace something new. Who knows, maybe I'll get my land legs, maybe I'll pursue an education, and perhaps one day you'll find me on the very stage telling you the story about a captain and the Russian nesting doll that opened her eyes. In the end, we're all nesting dolls, and life is a collection of our layered stories, and each invitation is a layer to grow. I'm not just a character. I'm the author. So my question for you is, what story will you tell next? Thank you.